I'm male, 6'3" and 250 pounds. I work at a job that requires me to care for lawns. The way my work for my company operates is that I will pull up to a customer's house, usually in front of the lawn section. I will need to make sure that 1, I am not blocking a fire hydrant or mailbox, as this is quite literally illegal and I would get into a massive amount of legal trouble even if I was sitting in front of them for less than a few minutes. 2, that I am not blocking the customer's driveway or neighbor's driveway. And 3, that the door to access my equipment is on the correct side, the right side, preferably away from the street. I am allowed only 10 minutes for anything under 5,000 square feet in total area, and I usually have 25 plus stops in a day. Yes, this is as hectic as it sounds. Usually I start work at 7 a.m. and don't finish until 4:30 or even 5 p.m. And the worst part is that my company is currently in its slow season, so being fast and efficient is crucial if you want to get home at a decent time. Usually this has the added effect of doing each stop as quickly as I can, since I know that if I don't work fast enough and at an even pace, I will slowly start to fall behind. To be clear, I walk, climb hilly terrain, climb stairs, and push a 20 to 40 pound speed spreader on just about every type of rough terrain you can think of, and this comes with the side effect of walking around 15 to 20 miles a day. How I wish this was an exaggeration. As I pulled up my work truck into the cul-de-sac, I noticed that I had 2 stops almost right next to each other on the same street, and on the same side of the road. This is uncommon, but does happen from time to time and is greatly appreciated because it means less driving throughout the day for me. The 2 houses were right next to each other except for their neighbor, whose house looked smashed in between the 2 much larger homes. So this meant that I wouldn't have to put my equipment up after I finished with the first house, and could instead directly move over to the other house, saving somewhere around 15 minutes of load and unload. The first house had a fire hydrant in front of it, and the other had a mailbox for the neighborhood. The Karen's house had nothing in front of it, and also conveniently had a gravel section where one could park a car off the street. However, because I've been in situations where customers don't like us using these gravel patches, I just went ahead and parked next to it on the street itself. Fast forward, and I'm heading to the first house, to the other client's home after finishing up, and I see a small woman, maybe 140 pounds, with a very annoyed expression on her face. I wasn't expecting anything from her, and thought that she wanted to ask me a question about what I was doing to her neighbor's lawn. It happens a lot. But instead, I was almost immediately yelled at for parking a truck in front of my house for the 3rd time, as well as comments such as, "How many times do I have to tell you not to park here?" except with more cursing. I've been working with this company for almost a year, and rarely outside of a few brief conversations have I ever had a problem with anyone, and if someone asked me not to park somewhere, I would make a note of the instructions and make sure that future techs didn't repeat the same mistakes. As well, sometimes people ask you to move out of the way or go to a different spot because they're picky about parking spots and idling trucks on their lots. Again, this takes all of 5 seconds and isn't a big deal in the slightest. So after taking in all her near-nonsensical rambling and yelling, I simply replied, "Of course, that's not a problem, ma'am. I'll make a note in the instructions so this doesn't happen again. I'm sorry for the inconvenience." She replies, "Well, good. Make sure you don't park in front of my house anymore." After a few more back and forths, this is where she basically just starts saying, "Don't park here anymore." She walks away, and I think that's the end of it. At this point, I can see that the other customer's yard is small, and I think that this yard will take me 5 minutes tops. This is where I messed up, I think, because she never asked me to move to a different place and only asked me not to park there next time. I figured I could go and crack out that lawn too, and thus went off to do exactly that. Because I was a bit behind in my schedule, I very stupidly thought that putting everything back in my truck, only to take it out again, was unnecessary, and I wouldn't be more than a few minutes, so it should be fine, right? After I was done with that lawn, a total of maybe 6 minutes tops, I came and loaded up my equipment, which only took about 30 seconds. Unload and refill take significantly longer. I sat back in my truck and started to print out the receipts for the client's lawns. And as I'm doing this, the Karen comes back up to me, this time on the phone with someone, and was visibly annoyed. When I say she was angry, I'm not joking either. She looked exactly what an over-aggressive chihuahua looks like when it's angry. And she was actually shaking from anger, I assume. She started to scream at me this time, though, which really caught me off guard because, again, I'm not on her property, only in front of it. Before she could start her ranting, I called out with my dumb smile, "Don't worry, I'm printing the receipts, and then I'm leaving. Just give me 30 seconds. Folks, this was not the correct thing to say. She rushed up to the side of my truck with a face that looked like she would murder me if given the chance. She started flying off the handle and screaming loudly, "No, you will move now. Not later, not in a minute, now. This is the third time I've talked to you about doing this, and I won't stand for it anymore. I shouldn't have to waste my precious time for a third time just because an idiot like you can't pay attention." Me, very confused, just replied back, "I'm sorry, ma'am, that you've gone through that. But this is the first time I have ever been to your neighbor's house. You may have spoken with a different tech about—" She cuts me off, shaking even harder somehow and screaming, "No, no, I don't care if this is your first time here. This is unacceptable. I don't pay for your service and you shouldn't be parked in front of my house." At this point, I'm slowly cluing in to her slight insanity and got out of my truck to go and deliver the seats, which meant that I had to get closer to her as she was standing right next to my truck. She yelled at someone who I assumed was a support person for my company or something, saying, "Oh my God, sir, he got out of his truck and approached me aggressively." At this point, I just rolled my eyes and quickly went to deliver the first receipt. Because I had to cross by her to get to the other house, I heard her once again screaming like a banshee about how, "You will not leave later, you'll leave now." As calmly as I could, I said, "Ma'am, please calm down. I'm just going to hang these receipts on the doors and then I'll leave. Look, you're so angry that you're literally shaking. Just calm down for a second and I'll leave immediately." She did not like this answer and went on about how I was being rude and aggressive with her. And then out of nowhere she tells me, "I will not calm down. How dare you? You are leaving right now or I'm calling the police." I sighed, hopped into my truck, still holding the other receipt, and turned it on to leave, all while she stared daggers at me, still shaking like crazy. I literally did not have time for this. I'll admit that I was a little petty here. I looked her in the eyes, grinned my widest smile, waved to her and said, "Have a great day, ma'am," as sarcastically as I could, and then sped off. I hope you all enjoy this small story of mine. It happened so quickly that I literally described it initially as sudden Karen whiplash. I never thought that this could happen to me, especially with how little I interact with customers. I was legitimately so baffled with what happened, it took me about an hour before I realized I had actually encountered a wild Karen. Now I can look back and chuckle at this, and it'll make for a good story in the future. 2. So I'm a 31-year-old woman, work at a cheeseburger restaurant chain that isn't fast food. It's a new job, so I haven't had a ton of time to see crazies yet, but I saw one today in my third shift of work. This isn't my story so much as it's Jay's. Jay is a teen girl who I work with whose identity and age I want to keep private since she's still a minor. But this story is from what she told me. So I walk into work today and see one of my managers is sitting at a table talking to this middle-aged looking man wearing a blue sweatshirt, green sweatpants, black shoes, and a dark beanie, Ken. Ken and my manager, a 20-year-old male, are having quite the argument. I don't know what it's about and don't pay much attention. I go behind the counter to clock in to hear Jay telling my other manager and my 19-year-old coworker what's going on. So evidently, Ken came to our restaurant like 4 weeks ago, which was in December. Jay was the cashier. He got a burger, fries, a drink. I don't remember the exact order. Then he ate it without a fuss. Tried to tip Jay a $10 Walmart gift card that she refused and left. Like 3 weeks later, Ken calls on the phone to rant about how awful the meal was, even though he ate it all, how he was too scared to tell Jay at the time, who works in the front of house and not the kitchen, and how he demanded a refund. Jay gets a manager who talks the guy down on the phone, enough to get him to hang up. Then 1 week later, the day I came in, Ken came in person to demand a refund. He claimed that Jay didn't give him a receipt and tried to argue his case. Then he got our poor manager R to sit down and listen to his crazy rant. The owner came by and let us know he was getting nothing. The managers told him as much, but the guy wouldn't give up. 3 hours later, when I'm about to get off early since we were overstaffed, Ken returned to ask for the manager again. Manager A was there this time and told him the same thing. I left, so I don't know when this saga will end, but this is the most bizarre customer encounter I've ever seen. Some of my coworkers thought the guy might be homeless or mentally unstable. I don't think he's homeless because, although he was in sweats, his clothes were clean and his face was clean-shaven. I don't know what his hair looked like. He's probably off in the head and needs help, but he might also just be a Karen. 3. I'm 20 years old and gender fluid, and I live with my older sister who is 27. We live in the house that used to belong to our parents before one of them passed away, and the other moved in with a new partner. Since my sister was already planning to move in with her girlfriend, and I was old enough, they ended up leaving the house to my sister and her girlfriend. I won't go into the abandonment issues and mess this caused, but believe me, it was a lot of bad stuff. Last year, she and her girlfriend broke up. And things got tighter at home. I started working and became 100% responsible for paying for the groceries and some bills like water and internet. An important detail is that I worked as an in-office administrative assistant during peak hours, while my sister has always worked from home doing Instagram posts for stores. You know. Those story ads with promotions and stuff? One thing she always does is act as if her job is extremely exhausting. Not saying it's not, but I would get on packed buses after a full day at work, come home, wash dishes without complaining, and make food while she, who stayed home all day, would complain about putting water in dishes she dirtied. Side note, I know these jobs can be tiring and fast-paced, but nothing will convince me that you can't spend a few seconds to put water in a frying pan. I'm currently unemployed and looking for a job, but unlike other days, I woke up wanting to clean and organize the house. I hung up the clothes she asked me to. I took out the trash, pulled some weeds in the backyard, and washed the dishes 3 times. I even had to rush to take the clothes off the line when it started raining, and her? She put the clothes in the washing machine and turned it on. On top of that, she left shards of glass on the bathroom floor, which I almost stepped on, and then told me to pick them up. When I complained, she said she was too busy working to pick up glass. Complained about old food in the fridge, saying, I can't take care of your responsibilities because I work too much. Side note, at the time, I was hanging up wet clothes from the rain, which should have been 100% her responsibility, and washing dishes, which were supposed to be mine. But in her head, I should always help her when she needs it, and I should never ask for her help with my responsibilities. Mind you, all the food she worked so hard like a poor farmer toiling under the sun to remove from the fridge were meals she cooked, stored, and didn't eat. But in her head, I was the one responsible for throwing them away. Anyway, here I am, taking a break, looking at memes and job hunting online, when she barges into my room to complain about a dish that wasn't properly washed. She tiredly explained how I should have done the task using water and soap, and said she couldn't put her mashed potatoes in it because it was greasy. Then I go to the kitchen, and this bitch left the dish dry without a single drop of water or soap. So yeah, this got long, but it served as a venting diary, if you listened this far. Send a go screw yourself to my sister, complain about her, or try to defend her. Either way, it'll be entertaining. 4. This happened about a week ago, and I still think about it because of how absurd this lady was. So I work in a tech store that is on the first floor of a shopping center. My store's uniform is full black. Black, bulky cargo pants with the store's entire name in bright blue on the leg, and black sweater with the store name in large text on the back, over the chest and down the right arm. The sweater is also made from the usual hoodie material, very comfy. Right next to the door I work at, there is a grocery store. It is themed after the kiwi fruit, so its colors are neon and bright green. The store itself, from the outside, and the employee uniform are all green. Their sweaters are made of fleece. So, here comes the day. I've left my store to quickly buy some food for my break, so I go to the grocery store. As I'm looking at the different sandwiches, trying to decide which one I want, I hear this I obviously don't turn around because I'm in full uniform for my store, so obviously whatever it is that's happening isn't directed at me. Until I get a full hand on my shoulder that physically drags me back. I am obviously startled by this and go, "What is wrong with you? Why did you do that?" While looking at her, and then she basically hisses at me and says, "Why do you think you're ignoring a customer? Now show me where the dairy-free section is." I look at her for a good while without responding, and that apparently made her angrier. Because she went, "Well, aren't you going to do your job? Show it to me." At this point I'm fed up, but still in work mode, so I smile and say, "Ma'am, I'm afraid I don't know where the dairy-free stuff is. I don't work here. You could ask one of them instead." I then point to one of the actual employees, there in their neon green fleece jackets. This was apparently the wrong thing to do because she got really huffy and went, "You helped me find my son's headset in the store, so obviously you work here. Now show me the dairy-free." At that point she was yelling, and had me standing back against the fridge with the sandwiches. Luckily for me, a security guard came up to her and told her to back off, stop yelling, and leave me alone. I took my chance and grabbed a sandwich and ran off further into the store, where an employee asked me if I was all right. She helped me find some more stuff I was looking for. I paid and promptly ran away to my store's break room to hide. My supervisors saw it too and gave me an extra 15 minutes for my break. I was pretty rattled when it happened, but that was just funny to me. My name is Tiney, and I live in a small town, so there is no public bus system. The main town center, where there's jobs in limit, is over a 2-mile walk. Biking past 2 miles means doubling the time to return home. That said, I tried 4 times to get the pricey local grocery store to hire me with interviews first. Then I did the last thing I ever wanted to. I applied to work at The Clown. Yes, this all takes place at the infamous fast food joint. I've been in this level of hell since late July. There's some stories I can share later as well. It needs to be known that I have a rare neurological disease. In the middle of a nasty flare-up where my right arm is in a sling, I work one-handed like a pro and just have a processing moment before figuring out the best method. As a result, I have to overdo it on the remaining limb. As a result, because of my excellent customer service skills recognized by a visiting corp person, my hours are smaller and I am the official lobby lady. I look deceitfully young, more like my mid-20s instead of 40. All the while I smile. I am very polite, and I work my butt off even when I'm sore or have pinched nerves numbing parts of my body. This is not to gain pity. I consider myself a chronic illness warrior, not a victim, but important. Anywhere from 2.5 times a week, our lobby gets invaded by teenagers at around 4 p.m. These little brats take up half the room, leave it a complete wreck, no joke. Stuff that shouldn't be happening without effort. Before, I would sometimes clean it when just service. Now I'm up there by the register in the lobby and constantly cleaning. Now onto the teenagers. The children. They age from the ranges of 13 to 15 years old, and here's my history with them up until this point. They yell at us trying to get free food somehow, by means of using an old screenshot of something their mother supposedly paid for via mobile app to pick up, or insisting something wasn't in their order. They swarm, and I mean swarm in groups of 5 to 13 depending on the day. The larger number, the bigger the mess. The children go into the bathrooms to take the very few stalls to stuff into and vape either nicotine or THC. They're very loud. The youngest loves to say JFC very loudly, constantly when he's upset. He's very aggressive and has this icky energy. Can't stand that short little blunt fluffball. They leave their personal items and mess countless times. They watch me, and quiet when I get near sometimes. Anywhere from 2 to 5 hours they are here. As of Tuesday, I was full in lobby and cleaned a pretty bad mess in half of it after they left. Suffice to say, I was frustrated and asked a manager if I can say something to them while they're wrecking things. She said yes. Yay! Queue yesterday. The children invaded, at least 11 by the end. Bathroom unusable for at least half an hour while I needed it badly, shouting, food and packaging everywhere. At one point there was only 2 who moved to the clean side and were talking. The same manager there pointed out the wreck. I pointed out their backpacks and stuff everywhere to ask if I can stow them until later. I figured if I inconvenienced them a bit. I took photos of the wreck to document it, got permission from the next manager, and the 2 boys remaining had moved all the backpacks, complaining to the girl who had returned. Meanwhile, I was clearing up the war zone, even keeping my face stern and irked as I worked when I watched them watching. All the while I was thinking, oh, you want a war? The war zone. 2 packs of buffalo sauce on a booth wall and on the ground, drink wet on ground, trays and food and trash in the first booth. Next booth is bad, minus the sauce and less wet ground. Across from that, the middle aisle was littered with small trash and food on the ground. I go in a few hours, and not looking forward to my quality bonding time with the children. Here's the changes I'm implementing today. I might be registered, but I'm not ringing these little brats up. Someone else from service can do it, not doing their drink refills and leaving them to wait on the counter when hustling for free food. You want good service? Stop being self-centered and after control. My goal is to slowly get my control, document their messes and the times, present it to my head manager and see what we can do. Any ideas or suggestions? I'm off to balance myself out before potentially dealing with the children for most of my shift. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 189. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Okay, I don't think we've any other business today, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. Oh wait, no, before we go, the author of story number 3, their Instagram page is linked in the description if you'd like to go take a look. They do some cosplay stuff you might be interested in. Okay. Actually, you know what? I think we'll skip the question and answer of the day this time. We're not retiring them permanently. It's just a couple of videos this week. I've decided to skip them because this is my last recording for the week, and I'm really hoping I can have a day off on Saturday. It's been a few weeks since I've had a day to rest, so I'm going to make things easier on myself. I'm going to be nice to myself. For once, I'm often much too hard on myself, I think. So, I hope you're all having a nice week, and that you take care of yourself. So until next time, I'm going to head off from now. Thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.